Welcome to Water Bottle Sessions. My name is Omar Fawzi, and I'm going to be your host for this podcast. A little bit about myself. I completed my master's degree in counseling psychology and later on completed my PhD in counselor education and supervision. Throughout my journey, I've had the opportunity to provide counseling services for the past 7 years. I have been able to teach for approximately 4 years in a master's program for students that are interested in counseling. And I've gotten to meet a lot of different people. Throughout this, I've learned the importance of perspective. I've learned the importance of being open-minded enough to create a space for people to share their opinions and perspectives. I'm really hoping that you'll go on this journey as we create this space for different peoples from different walks of life to share their opinions, to talk about their experiences, and how they ended up being who they are today. As I said, this is just simply a passion project of mine. I'm not going to be doing counseling. There's not going to be anything therapeutic in the traditional sense. However, if we can implore critical thinking, if we could show each other a little bit of empathy, and if we could just be willing to hear someone else's story, maybe we'll understand each other just a little bit more and be able to just explore new ideas and gain perspective from each other. So I hope you'll join me. And regardless of the platform in which you're listening to this, I hope you follow, I hope you subscribe, and please feel free to comment with ideas and different perspectives of your own. If you need to reach out, it's waterbottlesessions@gmail.com. I hope to hear from you, and I hope we all engage together as we go along this journey and listen to all these different stories. Thank you. Today we meet Dr. David F. Dr. David has a PhD in counselor education and supervision and is a licensed counselor. He was kind enough to take us on a brief journey through his past and some of the experiences that helped shape the evolving man he is today. Some of the topics to discuss include matters of identity, learning to accept yourself, the importance of having a support system, the importance of adaptability and flexibility in this life, and finally, how your relationship with God can continue in spite of some of the messengers that deliver his word. Please join us, and I hope you enjoy yet another drop of perspective on the water bottle. Dr. David, welcome to Water Bottle Sessions, man. How are you?
Man, I'm a little fucked up, but I'm here.
Good. I'm glad to have you here, man. So let's start it off, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Oh man, my story starts August 23rd, 1975. And I'm from Fairmont, North Carolina, a very small tobacco growing town in southeast North Carolina on the South Carolina border. And I was raised with my grandmother, my mom and dad, after having my brother and me. I'm the oldest of 8, but my mother and father had 2 kids, and then there's a controversy about my oldest sister. My mom says that my dad's her father, my dad says not his child. So I don't know who to believe. So as far as I know for sure, Dedrick Ford and I have the same mother and father. So they divorced and went separate ways. And so my brother and I were with my grandmother, my dad's mom. And I grew up in the church. Grew up in the church, was a church musician at age 12. Backtrack. So I'm taking piano lessons at age 8, and really took to playing the piano, and started playing piano in my church at 12, and that was a source of expression and pleasure for me, and also spiritual expression for me. So, growing up, I was always called sissy and faggot and all sort of stuff. And, I didn't give a shit. I mean, I don't now, but then back then it hurt a lot. And I'm like, okay, but I always knew that I liked guys because I was already pressuring on my older cousins' friends and older and folks that I was cool with. So, I never did anything with girls or didn't have any desire to do anything with girls. So The time came for me to leave and go to college. When I left at 18, I left. I did not want to live back in Fairmont. I went to visit, but there was nothing there. And just a lot of bad memories living in a small town and growing up there. I had some good times, but I had some bad things that I wanted to put behind me. And
I can only imagine, man. That sounds rough.
It was, and I mean, it wasn't. It was more good than bad, but a lot of times the bad seems to overshadow the good because the bad things are what really impact you and make you who you are. Because the bad things teach you things, and I learned growing up that we always go with the whole sticks and stones may break your bones, but words never hurt you. All that bullshit.
Yep.
And you have to take bullying and that sort of stuff, and not having any support when I talked to me being bullied. Even my teachers, teachers were big bullies too. So, so that taught me that all those things have morphed me into who I am today, and I'll get to that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When you were getting bullied, when you were going through all that, when you were a young kid, at that point, like if you don't mind me asking, at what point did you realize I'm gay?
Baby, I had my first crush in the first grade.
That's awesome.
I did have my first boy crush in the first grade. And, so I always knew, so.
Did you ever tell anyone?
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I didn't even tell, I didn't even tell myself,
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't. So
that's powerful, man. That's really powerful.
Yeah. So I try to keep that hidden from myself, and that's some fucked up shit, man. But,
yeah.
But yeah, that's what I call myself doing. So went off to college, got a full ride to Wake Forest University, and that was the only school to which I applied, the only one.
Why?
And ended up getting. I don't know why. I knew I did. I knew that I did not want to follow everybody else and go to UNC Pembroke or and I for sure wasn't going to UNC Chapel Hill. Hell to the no. I wasn't going to Duke either. No. Mm-mm. No. Mm-mm.
Help me understand why. I'm ignorant to this.
Just that being from North Carolina and that whole rivalry with Duke, Carolina, and Wake Forest, and everybody around me was a Duke Carolina fan. My dad was a still a big Tar Heel fan. My aunt is a big Duke fan, and I'm like, y'all can have that shit. And even to this day, I say Crappy Hill and Puke University.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest, yes. And so I got to Wake Forest, and there were very few people there that were from my hometown. Very few, and I liked it. I got involved with the gospel choir. I was a gospel choir pianist, so I got to a lot of the Black people on campus. But then so I hang with a lot of other folks too. So I had a lot of friends that weren't Black. Got involved with Red Life when I was an undergrad, and I met this one guy, and I was like, he is sexy as fuck. Not knowing that he was gay too. And I was like, oh, he's a cutie. Oh my God. And like we started hanging out in the same circles. And, he was actually my first sexual experience. I was out, I met him as a freshman and then came back sophomore year. And, as a freshman, I started seeing a counselor. First time I ever went to counseling, my counselor was a Black woman. She was wonderful. And that was the first time I uttered the words that I'm gay. I know at first I was bisexual. For me, and this is just my story because I do believe that there are truly folks that are truly bisexual. And I don't agree with bisexual erasure. But for me and my story, mm-hmm. I used the bisexual crutch because I could not admit that I was, queer as a football bat, So
I've never heard that term before. I like it. Queer as a football bat.
Yeah, or queer as a $3 bill.
Nice. How was that for you, saying I'm bisexual?
I knew I was lying to myself. I knew it was a lie because I was not attracted to women and didn't want to be with a woman, And so
that's intense, man.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was. And to this day, I want to contact my counselor from Wake Forest and ask her, did you know you knew I was bullshitting when I was talking to you?
You can't call it. You can't call it out. You got to come over yourself.
But yeah, then sophomore year came and I was coming to my own, and baby, not only was I out, I threw open those closet doors and then sat on the couch with my feet propped up. That's how out I was.
Hell
and
yeah.
That was liberating, and I could do that because I compartmentalized my college life from my church life, from my home life, and I was in a situation where my crush and I were in the same room together, and things led to things, and it happened, and I was like, wow. Not knowing that he wanted it to happen as much as I did, and it was just sex, and it wasn't even like penetration sex. I was like, that was my first sexual experience ever, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and so that kind of helped me to come to terms with who I am, and that was difficult because I was still struggling with can I be gay and still be a Christian? Can I be gay and still be active in the church? And that's what really started this whole case of the fuckets.
The case of the fuckets.
Yes.
Elaborate.
I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to be who I am, and whoever doesn't care, fuck them. And so I did my thing, man. I went through my phase of not wanting to date any Black men and whatever. Most of like when I first started, I only went for white guys, and I realized that was stupid. Because right now, dude, you can't look. I love a Black man. I do. I there's something about being with another Black man. It's just like, whew, us, loving each other, forget what the world says, and same thing with being with a Latin man who has a strong Latin identity. and it really is like down for the shits. You know, being with someone who can truly understand the struggle of being a minoritized individual, a man that's Black or brown in this country. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love my brother. I do.
Dude,
But,
that's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely incredible. But how did you get the courage? Like, I want you to go back to the story of the Fuckets, because that sounds like a difficult place to get to, man. How the hell did you, what was that like?
There were some key folks in my life that were like, you know what? Just be you. And just sitting down and having conversations with them because of who they were. You know, very high profile folks, like administrators at Wake Forest, who would sit down and talk to me and affirm me. You know, friends of mine from college that affirmed me, you know, and there's one, I never really got a chance to tell him how much I appreciate him because he died. I met him when I came to interview for a scholarship at Wake Forest, you know, and I wish that I could have the chance to just say, you know what, thank you.
You said it. You said it now, man. And I'm sure that you've lived it in your heart.
Yeah. And so that, and then another thing that gave me a lot of courage was this one pastor I had. This motherfucker was shady. He was manipulative, and he was like, I know you're not supposed to talk bad about the man of God. I know you don't. That's what I've been taught. But he was the worst. He was. He was. And
how so?
He was just very manipulative, and he was spiritually manipulative. And he was one of those, you know, my way or the highway, what I say goes, and all that bullshit. And I that taught me a lot about being assertive and advocating for myself. And once I started doing that, that's when he realized that he didn't have his hold on me. That's when things started to change. I said, you know what? I'm about to leave this church. The money's good. I like some of the people here, but I can't deal with this motherfucker. If I keep doing it, I'm going to cuss his ass out.
Yeah.
You know? And at the time, I had a partner who was the exact same way.
As the pastor?
Yes. Manipulative, cheated on me, lying, put his hands on me. He was, you know, he was in recovery when I met, but he relapsed, and that was it. So I'm like, I'm giving to both you motherfuckers.
Clean slate, man. Clean slate.
Yeah. So that's what taught me to really be an advocate for myself and to be an advocate for others who don't have that voice, you know?
Yeah.
And so getting into Wake Forest, I had a blast at Wake Forest, man. I did. I had the ear of the administration. I could, you know, just the mentors were there. There was one Black woman who just treated me like a son, and she still does, you know. And I got to give it to her. Right now, she's like the chief diversity officer at a large research public institution. And when I met her, she was director of multicultural affairs and at Wake Forest. And this woman, she was down for the shits, man. She was down for the shit. And not only with that, but she looked out for us as Black folks. You know, yes, she was. Now she was strong spiritually, and she really just embodied what being a strong Black woman, mother, Christian was and still does, you know? And she's a fellow Demon Deacon, you know? She came back to Wake Forest to teach and then became an administrator. She was a double deacon like me, undergrad and master's there, you know? And so I'm like, okay. And then she knew some folks from Fairmont, because when she was in college, she went to college with one of my dad's high school classmates. The first Black man to ever be in the Wake Forest Basketball Hall of Fame. You know?
Wow.
And so she knew like a lot of people from Fairmont, like, and so that was like a down home connection. She knew my piano teacher.
That's awesome, man. That's so really cool.
I had the support network in college. And so now I partied and played now. So my GPA in college barely made the cutoff to graduate, but I did.
Yep. All that matters.
Yep, I did. I have my degree.
What'd you get your degree in?
Undergrad in psychology, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I started out pre-med. That tanked my GPA and screwed me all up. But, you know.
I will say that there's, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it sounds like the one thing that really helped you get through a lot of the difficult times and what gave you, and I'm not putting words in your mouth. I just want to make sure I understand right, that having that support network, having people that can not act as crutches, but sometimes act as crutches, but people that can have your back and to tell you, hey, like you said, affirm and validate that you are a human being, that you are a gay Black man.
Yes. And I appreciate that. And so I've sought out, you know, people like that throughout my life and wanted to be that person for others, you know? So, graduate Forest. Now, mind you, my GPA sucks, and you can't do anything with an undergraduate degree in psychology. Nothing. And so I worked a whole bunch of odd jobs, man. I did some shit, you know. I worked retail at Eddie Bauer for 3 years. Yeah. I worked at 2 mental health facilities, got fired from both of them.
Is there a story there that you're willing to share?
Yeah. You know, it's just lack of maturity.
Okay.
Lack of maturity. You know, that's just, that's it. That was lack of maturity. Then an opportunity came and it was just placed in my lap. One of my church members was the nurse supervisor on the neuroscience, neurology unit at the hospital. And she said, "Have you thought about being a CNA?" I'm like, "No." She said,
"Well, what a CNA is."
It's a certified nursing assistant.
Got it.
And so I'm like, okay, all right. And so she was like, well, you know, for Psych Tech has classes that are free. You have to apply for the job at the hospital, and the hospital will pay for your training. And you'll be getting paid while you're getting trained. It was a 2-week course.
Wow.
Yes, a 2-week course. Dude, I got it there, and hey, I grasped the concept just like that. And so then she said, well, I have an opening on our unit for third shift. Third shift was perfect, 11 p to 7 a. I still go to church and, you know, and it's like every other weekend, you know. I was like, okay, cool. Man, I loved the work that I was doing. And so the patients that we had, there were stroke patients, patients that had dementia, pain management, head injuries, and craniotomies. And so we have mostly elderly patients. And I found out why people call that shift the graveyard shift, because a lot of times your patients would we call it expire, would die overnight.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they would send us patients from the ED, the emergency department, that were about to die anyway. And so
so you guys you just do the paperwork?
So as the CNA, if that person was on my assigned unit, I have to clean up the body, tag the body, bag them up, put them on the gurney, and take them out to the morgue. That was my job. I didn't mind that at all. I wasn't scared.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty intense, though.
Yes, yeah, and I really enjoyed the work that I was doing. The families really appreciated my work, because whereas some folks would utilize those wipes to bathe their patients, but then do 2 baths every night. I would get the pan, get some hot water, soap, washcloths, and towels, and I would soak them down with warm water all over. I would really wash and bathe my patients. If they wanted their hair shampooed, I would shampoo their hair. If they wanted to shave, I would shave them. And then when I would do that all while making the bed. So when I put them in the bed, they look like a totally different person. And I even got like the really thick moisturizing cream and moisturize their entire body from head to toe.
Let me ask you this. Why?
I would want somebody to do that for me if I were, total care patient. That means that they can't do it for themselves.
Yeah.
I would expect somebody to do it to my relative. And just because you're in a hospital does not mean that you have to look like you're in a hospital.
Wow. Really well said, man.
And like if my patient, like sometimes they could not go to the bathroom, so they have to use the bathroom in the bed. Right. Why would I let them sit in urine and feces? And so I make sure the sheets look good. I will pick over the nasty looking gowns to get a good gown, all of that. And the families will always appreciate that. Some of the nurses will appreciate it. Like, man, I can tell you gave that person a good bath. Like, yeah, I sure did. And that's how I approach counseling and teaching. What if I was sitting on the other side? How would I want to,
You jumped hard. So go.
Yeah, I did.
Right.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Thank you. Keep me on track, Doc. Keep me on track. I love it, man.
I got you.
I know, man. And I appreciate that. And so in the process of that, that's when I left one church and went to another. Lo and behold, a member of this church was a professor in the nursing department at Winston-Salem State University, one of the top nursing programs around. And so I was like, okay, I thought that I was going to okay, can you do this and go to get my nursing degree? Another job opportunity came along. I'm working for the county and working with adults with developmental delays and intellectual disabilities, And so after 3 years, I was a CNA 1, and then I got my CNA 2 certification, which means that CNA 2, you can do some of the nursing stuff, like inserting a patient's catheter. Patients, if the doctor ordered a catheter to measure the urine, I was able to do that. I was able to do sterile technique. I was able to do wound dressings, wound care. I could discontinue an IV, all those things.
Give or take, how old are you at this point? How far are we removed from Wake Forest?
I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
Early 20s, yeah.
I only bring that up because of what you said earlier about even just giving them a bath and a bed, and the way that you explain that. So you're at that point, you're in early 20s still, right? The amount of empathy and the amount of love in your heart and the amount of, it's not easy to be able to turn someone not upside down, but turn them on their side, wash their back, wash everything. And at the same time, pick up the corners of the sheets, slide it underneath, put the new ones on, so on and so forth, and so forth. And sometimes, especially, you have a personal life. It's much easier to grab that big tub of wipes rather than get that tub, get the hot water, get that soap. Right. So in your early 20s, already demonstrating a shit ton of empathy and a shit ton of love towards someone else. And that's also including your past experiences when you were young of the bullying, and you're still being able to do that to other people. I just wanted to say, awesome, man.
Thanks, man. And you know what's funny? Because we were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and the next county to the west and the county to the south are both Klan country.
I honestly did. I thought I did not hear Klan country.
Yes, Davidson County and Davie County, Klan country. And so our hospital sat in the middle of that.
Wow. The story gets deeper.
And so and once someone gets dementia, those filters get removed.
Yeah.
So I was called all kinds of niggas. I was called faggot, queer. I was called all of that shit by patients that could not do anything for themselves.
Damn.
And
still held that love, man.
I still had to do it.
Yep.
I still had to do it.
A job is a job is a job. But not just as a CNA. It sounds like this is more of a calling.
Yeah.
A relationship to other people, at least.
Yes. And
so CNA 2, that's where you left off. CNA 2, catheters, dressings.
I did all that. And, I was always getting called on to do those things at night. And then I got the job of working for psychiatry. I liked what I was doing. So I outwent the desire to be a nurse, too. I liked doing that. Full-time job, benefits, retirement, all that. So I ended up getting fired from that job. And so I had, free cruise to the Bahamas, go to work.
Oh.
Free cruise to the Bahamas, go to work.
Bahamas. Go to the Bahamas.
Of course.
Yeah.
Came back to a pink slip. So someone suggested I try substitute teaching. And some kind of substitutes made a lot of money. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Once I submitted my application, Omar, I was getting calls left and right. And then when I started subbing in the system, and people were like, we like him, I started getting people requesting me. So I had work every day. Sometimes I would sub one school up until noon. And so no school at 1 o'clock to the end of school. So I made a killing. So then I said, I might as well get a permanent job in the school system.
Did you like it?
I love subbing, man. I did. I met so many folks doing that. And I ended up getting a job as a teacher assistant at a Title IX school, which it means like most of the students get free reduced lunch, and the school was mostly Black and Latinx. And because I spoke Spanish, I was also one of the translators. And so I was a reading teacher assistant, so we had a reading program so to help students with their reading scores. Dude, oh my God. I mean, I love the students. I love the school. It was amazing. It was. In the meantime, I decided to pledge a Black Green Letter organization. I became a member of CAP.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I decided to pledge a Black Greek letter organization.
Got it.
So, fraternity. And so I became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. This was spring of 2006. October of 2005, that's when my grandmother passed away. My brother died. My grandmother raised me. Not knowing that was going to be the last time that I would see my piano teacher alive. She was young. And see, my grandmother loved her. She loved my grandmother. She used to have the biggest crush on my daddy. So she was really close to my family. So she came to my grandma's funeral. And she just didn't look like herself at all, So she had diabetes and on dialysis. And so January 2006 is when she died. Of course, they called on me to provide the music at the funeral. They had to play for the choir, so I did that. And so that was a tough year for me. Really tough year. So I ended up resigning from my job as teacher assistant because I didn't know what I was experiencing. I was experiencing depression at the time, and I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. And
so my work suffered, and yeah. So then I was without a job, got evicted from my apartment, so I wasn't making any money. And I moved in with my aunt in Greensboro, who was a school teacher. She decided to retire early, put a house on the market, and move to Canada. So I was without a job, homeless. My car was about to be repossessed, all that.
Wow.
Yeah. I applied for a job at Winston-Salem State in Rest Life as a hall director, thinking that, what I remember, hall directors live on, so there'll be a place to live. Didn't read the job description all the way because it wasn't a live on position. It was live out. So I had to have this place to stay. Interviewed, did not get the job. Now, the Bible says that God will open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing you wouldn't have enough room to receive. So the way I see it, God does not open or close doors. And if a door is closed, God will always open up a window. And every house I know has more windows than doors.
Right.
God opened up a window. Winston-Salem State called me the day before my aunt was about to leave and drive to Canada, offering me a temporary position that is lived in as an assistant hall director. Baby, I moved in the next day. this was after a lot of failed relationships. I was dating some stupid motherfuckers. But I look back on it, I was a stupid motherfucker too. So, they know, fools.
You were going through some shit, man.
Yeah, I was.
In early 20s, you're still learning who you are. You're still learning, like, who the hell am I? Coming to terms with so many different parts of your identity. And hell, from what you mentioned earlier, that stack of different roles and different hats that you wear, it's not a small stack, man. And we haven't even... I'll let you keep going. I'll ask a question later. Keep going.
So, early 30s, I turned 30 in 2005. 2007 rolled around when I got the job. January 2007. I was like, okay. I was thrust into it. Omar, this was new territory for me. I love that shit, man. Living with the residents, building those relationships, I really enjoyed it. And so I was like, this is some cool stuff, man. So I figured in my mind that I was going to stay in student affairs or work on college students and move up. Now, not knowing that, Lord, I just had this following of young gay Black men. And they looked to me as a father and as a mentor. So my little cousin started going to Winston-Salem State. And once, of course I was going to look out to him. That was my boy. That's my baby, His mama and I were real tight. His dad and I were real tight. So I'm like, okay, I got him. Don't worry about him. I got him. And so that started, a lot of other young gay Black men and gay men of color that were at university hanging out. They were all in my apartment. I would cook big dinners every Sunday. They'll all come to my place to eat, all that. If they didn't have a car, I let them borrow my car. Well, my cousin, yeah. And or they go somewhere to some places. So yeah, I would do that. And building some of those relationships that I've built with students, I still have to this day. A lot of them have decided to get masters in counseling and PhDs in counseling education. And so I knew they had to get a master's degree to move up. And working at a state institution, I could go to another state institution and take 3 credits for free each year. So I was going to get my master's in student affairs and higher education, I enrolled in some classes at UNC Greensboro because their higher ed program is one of the top programs in the country. It wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good fit for me.
As far as university or as far as student affairs?
Just, the classes. And I realized why. Because UNCG has both counseling and student affairs. And so in that one class, there were 3 different cohorts. The student affairs and college counseling cohort, the student affairs cohort, and the PhD in higher ed cohort. I wasn't in either of those cohorts. And so they were cliques, and I wasn't in any of them. And so I just felt like I was, the odd man out.
Yeah. Kind of reminiscent of early childhood, right?
Yes. And so I was like, okay, all right. So that was spring of 2008. So I was like, this is going to work. So what am I doing? And God said, try Wake Forest. I looked at the Master of Arts and Liberal Studies program because a friend of mine had done that program and then got a PhD in higher ed at Virginia Tech, and I was an administrator. And so I looked at the program. They were like, we're cutting the funding for the program. You can apply, but just have a pocket. I'm like, oh, hell nah. And the Lord said to me, you know what? You are hard-headed and you don't listen. look at the counseling program at Wake Forest. And I knew folks that went to that program and are in student affairs too. Applied, studied for the GRE, to the GRE, did really well on the GRE, and ended up getting into the counseling program at Wake Forest. You know, I was like, and at the time, Wake Forest fully funded that program. Everybody that got in got a full tuition scholarship and a laptop computer. And see, beforehand, I didn't know how high profile Sam Gladding was until we started like using his textbooks, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. That's how I met Cortland Lee. He was on the K-Crep team.
Awesome.
Not knowing that Cortland Lee was good friends with all of my professors. Mm-hmm. You know, so got to the program. I mean, did really well. On the job side of it, I was still working full time. The program was full time. My supervisors did not support me in going back to get my master's. So I said, you know, I'm going to go straight to get my PhD. All the while, I was building relationships with the students there, you know, in the community. Ended up playing piano for this small United Methodist Church in a very small town called Laurel Hall, North Carolina. Doc, these people were and still are amazing.
Of what?
They are amazing.
Amazing. Got it.
I mean, they didn't care about me being gay. They didn't care about any of that shit, man. I mean, they treated me like I was one of their family members.
That's awesome.
And I'm forever indebted to them for giving me that chance. I mean, when we had our CSI induction at Wake Forest, they came. When I had my hoodie ceremony at Wake Forest, they came.
Wow.
You know, when I got to Old Dominion for my PhD, they were sad, but they were very supportive of me, you know, and I really appreciate them for that.
Shout out to them, man. Shout out to them.
Yes. But yeah, man, you know, and all the while I was getting more and more confident in who I am and what I am, and not giving a shit about what people think, even family members. And that reminds me, I was floored at how supportive my family was about me being gay. That shocked the shit out of me. It really did.
What were the expectations, and then what was the reality?
The expectations were they were going to shun me and everything. They don't. I'm like, they don't. As a matter of fact, they're pretty open about trans folks too. I'm like, who are you people?
Did you just expect them to be like the common story or the stereotypical story of you're out?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it didn't go that way, man.
It didn't. You know, and you know, it was funny that I think, you know, they see me as an adult, and I like that too. You know, because the way we have adult conversations.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that too. You know. Mm-hmm. And so, let me backtrack.
Go for it.
So when I got to my master's program, that was when my mom and I started rebuilding our relationship. My mom left. When I'm saying my mom left, she left.
Hey, fix the mic.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
All right. Yeah, when I say my mom left, she left. And we didn't hear from her for a long time. I mean, a long time. So she really came back into my life when I was, you know, when I graduated high school, but then she wasn't that, we weren't that close until I like started going back to Wake Forest for my master's. And so, she came and, and I appreciate, her wanting to still be a part of, my life because, here's the way I feel about relatives. Relatives are not obligated to love you and care for you. Your mom was not obligated. Mm-hmm. Your dad's not obligated. It's that, and people say, well, that's still your family. That's bullshit. Mm-hmm. They can still be toxic. And so, I appreciate that. And so she's been really supportive, of all of that. My dad has, he's addicted right now and tries to put guilt trips on my brothers and me and stuff like that. So, and then coming to find out why my mom left, I see a lot,
Yeah.
And I understand. I understand why she left. People say you shouldn't leave your kids. You don't know what people are going through, and you can't say what you would do in that situation.
Yeah.
When you are living in a house with emotional, physical, psychological abuse, I understand that.
I think it goes a long way. It goes a long way in not looking at something at face value and just judging it, but understanding that sometimes really, really what at face value looks like a shit decision and a mistake. If you dive in a little bit and understand someone's story, you'll come to terms with understanding, well, wait a minute, nothing is actually that simple.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm glad that your mom, when she, that support. And again, that's the one commonality throughout every part of your story, including the failures, including the challenges, including getting fired. I mean, hell, you got fired to go on a free cruise. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I lost something, but I also gained something.
Yeah.
Balance seems to be a real theme here,
Mm-hmm. So, so that's what, has contributed to me being me. Now we know dealing with folks that are manipulative, folks that don't want to accept the full you, and they're dealing with folks that are on the total opposite of that spectrum. All those relationships have taught me that I got to be my authentic self and not care about what others think, even if that means, me cussing out a preacher, because I cuss out a preacher. That means that I have to bring my real and full self to any situation, whether it be speaking in front of a crowd of ACA or talking to my tribe.
American Counseling Association, by the way, is ACA. And I want to ask you a question, not to interrupt. Mm-hmm. Where in the living hell did you find that confidence? And how did you, at what point in your story, at what point in your life have you been able to define that extremely difficult question, I think, for every single human being out there is, what is your authentic self? And what does that mean?
Well, let me tackle that one first. My authentic self, that is evolving, and see, people think that that's a process with an endpoint. No, you learn more. Hopefully, you learn more and more about yourself every day. Hopefully, you learn more and more about society and individuals every day. Hopefully, you take what you learn and evolve and grow with it. So my authentic self is that, it's going to manifest itself differently as I get older.
Yeah.
Just know that sometimes that may mean me being even more outspoken.
That's big of you, man. Dude, I think a lot of people think, I don't know, it's a good question, but I feel in my experiences, people find that the second that they're able to find themselves, it's a snapshot that they have to hang on to and put in their pocket, and they can never let it go. They refuse to take another picture of who they are to see, have I grown? What have I learned? Mm-hmm. They don't see it as something evolving. They see it like I need to hang on to whatever version of myself I believe I am in that moment, and I will do everything in my power to defend against it. So even just seeing that evolution of self and that growth and willing, but I think it also, David, from everything you've said, man, you've been open-minded to learn the lessons. You've been open-minded for growth. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you give yourself enough credit for that, man.
I grew up, I grew up with this, at some point you're old and stuck in your ways, and too old to change or too old to learn. And young folks can't teach other folks anything. Young folks can't challenge older folks. And you know what I always thought about those premises?
What's that?
That's some bullshit.
I agree. I really agree. Yeah.
I pray that I never get too old to not change and grow. Yeah. I pray that I never get too old to not let someone younger than me challenge me and teach me things. I pray that I never get too old that I'm stuck in my ways.
Yep.
If I'm 80 years old and still teaching, I want to know what all the latest teaching techniques are. I want to know what all the latest therapies there are out there. I want to know what the latest technology is out there. So I can implement that shit and still be like, okay, I got this, because I've seen so many older folks that are teaching now that can't do the technology. I'm like, really? Really? You got to be adaptable, in every walk of life, and even our fraternity has to be adaptable, and our fraternity is, we were founded in 1911. So we're 109 years old. And we got some folks that have been in the fraternity for like 50 and 60 years. Got some brothers that are 80s and 90s. We have, as a fraternity, we would have to like change with the times, using Zoom for meetings or using other platforms for meetings. And I'm at a point, I'm 45 years old, and I don't ever want to get to the point where when I get 65, that I don't want to still learn and grow. If the Lord allows me to see 65, I still want to be able to learn and grow.
That's so admirable, man. And I love what you said about if I'm teaching at 80, that I still want to be able to learn from my students and be able to be open-minded enough to get and receive information from them. That's something that, I couldn't agree more. That's very big of you. That again, just echoes the same theme, is you're open-minded for new information.
Yeah. And so today, the me that you see right now, as a matter of fact, I'm meeting one of my mentees later on today. I want to be that mentor, especially for young Black and brown men, whether you're straight, gay, or whatever, straight, gay, trans, polyandrous, polyamorous, whatever, I want to be that mentor, that support for them, that person that says, hold up, they didn't tell you, that person didn't tell you the full story. Let me talk to you for a second. This is what you do. Because white America is not really going to be supportive of Black and brown folks. White America is not really going to allow us to infringe upon their white privilege. White America is not going to ensure that places are inclusive and welcoming for folks that aren't like them. With this new executive order that fool in the White House is signing, that cuts out all diversity training, anything that talks about white privilege, anything that talks about, gender bias, and talks about the true nature of this country being a racist and sexist and homophobic nation. You know,
is probably the best way to sum it up. It's a strong and stern.
And then to see motherfuckers in our profession that support that fool, and are just as racist and homophobic as all get out. Folks that still support conversion theory. Folks that still don't think that white privilege exists. Folks that still don't think this nation is racist and sexist. And they're actually seeing clients and teaching folks, you know? So.
You know, David, first off, by the way, you actually never introduced what is it that you do. You gave us the story, but you never cemented it. You never said, and right now, Dr. David F. is. So say to the masses, man.
Oh my God. And I've been working on my dossier for the last couple of days for work. I am a counselor educator. I teach students how to be counselors. That is my full-time job. I'm a tenure-track professor. I also provide counseling on the side. I have, a client load. I also provide clinical supervision for counselors in training and pre-licensed postmasters counselors. I'm the president of our state counseling association. I am very active with the LGBTQ Scholars of Color Network. Let's see. I sit on a lot of committees and have a lot of these leadership positions in our profession. But I'm a counselor by trade, and I also have experience in training in student affairs. So student development theory is a passion of mine as well.
Glad I didn't have to write and print that out, man. I'd be out of ink.
And I am one of the inaugural fellows of the National Board for Certified Counselors Minority Fellowship Program. And to this day, that is this is why we're giving back to NBCC, because they gave me a fellowship. And so now I'm like, whenever they need me, I'm there. I get a mentee every year from the year 2. I'm like, shoot, I got you. And I am the 2020 recipient of the Samuel H. Johnson Distinguished Service Award of the Association for Multicultural Counseling and Development. What's funny is that after I got the award, I actually got a chance to meet Samuel H. Johnson. And if you know anything about multicultural counseling and like people that are like our elders, you can't talk about multicultural counseling and talk about people like Thomas Parham and Samuel H. Johnson, and meeting both of them at the same conference was like, oh my goodness. And so, and not knowing that Tommy knew of me already, I was like, and so we talked for a good while, and then getting a picture with Samuel H. Johnson, and then going to his presentation and hearing him speak and talk about his story and the things that he's contributed to our profession. I was like, man, this is amazing. Supposed to take a picture with him, and just to know that, hey, I won your award. And then the AMCD luncheon at ACA is named after him. So I go to luncheon every year, and I'm like, if we had ACA in person, I would have gotten the Sam H. Johnson Award at the Sam H. Johnson Awards luncheon.
Yeah, I'm gonna make an argument against what you're saying. I think he's very lucky to have taken a picture with you. He did the work when he was your age and younger in order for him to build up whatever he did. However, if it wasn't for the people that took his teachings and made it actions, I think both of us are in education. Both of us are in the same field. Too often, the people that are the people that have the opportunity to speak are not the people doing the actions. And the people out there doing the work don't have the time to speak. And it's interesting to see and hear someone like you who's right in the middle, who's both doing the action and speaking and publishing and doing it's not just let me hear my voice and let me scream at the sky. And let me just stop and say, oh, I finally published that one article, or I finally did that one book. So my goal for the next 20 years, every 2 years, to change the letter A from uppercase to lowercase somewhere in a sentence. And that's my second edition, and then my third edition, and then my fourth edition. It's refreshing. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, man. And so, here I am teaching multicultural counseling to students who are, and our program is very white. Most programs are, unless you're attending a historical Black college university, But my faculty and my students get it. There may be a few that don't, but for the most part, man, they get it. And I appreciate that. I really appreciate that from them. My colleagues, they get it.
I think it's hard to be both studying counseling. It's hard to be exposed to people like Jung. And if you're doing the readings, if you're doing what your professors are asking you to read, when you read Freud, when you read Jung, when you read these, and I'm not going to even call them psychologists, counselors, or any of that, but philosophers is the way I like to describe it. When you read these people, it's hard, if you're open-minded enough to learn this new information, not to walk away and look around the world and apply it. If it's beat into our head, right? You got into counseling, empathy. Like, know your bias. Know that regardless of how much you try to work on it, you're gonna have biases. Know that sometimes if you have a relationship in the past that you have not dealt with, it may come up in session where you start to experience countertransference, where you start projecting your own shit onto the client, basically. When you're taught all these things, and I'm not speaking for you, I'm not speaking for anyone, but how the hell do you keep that in the classroom and not end up applying it to every aspect of your life?
Every aspect.
So going back to what you said about certain people that are in our field, that whether, and I don't want to stick on the whole support Trump thing, because I think that's it's low hanging fruit. It's too easy.
Yes.
But to not be in support of people learning and growing to understand their own identity, regardless of its color, whatever it may be, that's a bit suspicious. That's a bit strange. I don't know if those people necessarily need to be in the field of helping other people understand their own identity, or teaching future counselors who are going to be helping people deal with some real shit.
They deal with their own shit.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Going back, and what was it like for you? And do you still have a relationship with the church?
Yes, I'm very active with my church now.
What was that like, being a gay Black man in the church? Was there anything that you had to negotiate? Was there anything that you had to come to terms with? How did you maintain your spirituality and your faith in a world that sometimes, and I'm not talking about I am talking about human beings, but in a world, not just the US, that may say you can't be gay and have a relationship with God, especially at our age. That is something that we grew up with. It may be changing finally. However, that's not the world we grew up in.
Okay, so I just actually wrote a book chapter about this topic. And
drop the plug, please. Drop the plug. What's the book? What's whatever? And when we're done, I need you to text me a link to the book that I will put in in all the settings.
What is the name of the book? I'm about to find out for you.
Take your time. That's news to me, man. I did not know that you did that.
Yeah. It's a book about queer psychology. The book editors are Dr. Kevin Nadal and Dr. Maria Sharon del Rio. And my book chapter dealt with being Black and brown individual, being Black and brown and queer trans in the church. And I looked at, the Black church. I looked at Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. I even talked about pagan traditions, atheist and agnostic. One thing that I found when talking about queer Black men in the church is that they do one of three things to deal with what is that anxiety, that cognitive dissonance of being queer and being spiritual. Mm-hmm. They totally just shun all those beliefs and resort to atheism. They find a church that is affirming. Let's do the first two first. Mm-hmm. The one that hardly ever happens when they switch to atheism. And if you do a cross section of Black folks that attend churches, especially Black churches, Black women are the most represented. Neck and neck with Black women are queer Black men. So that's not happening. We still attend church. Hey, we still are the preachers, the ushers, the singers, the musicians, choir directors, teach Sunday school, all of that. We're still doing all of that. So we don't resort to atheism.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Second thing is finding an affirming ministry to attend. That barely happens because most of those communities are white and center whiteness, and they don't have the same spiritual that Black churches have. So that doesn't happen. What we tend to do is not question the message or God, but question the messenger.
Bravo.
And the messenger's interpretation of spirit of the word. And then we know that even though the pastor is up there preaching this sermon every Sunday, we know what goes on behind closed doors.
Got it. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, he said that. I know he's full of shit right now. And that's not what God is telling me. My relationship with God is my relationship with God. It has nothing to do with that motherfucker and what he just said.
Hey, your mic again. Just shake the cord or something. No, that's
and that's the way I approach that with teaching my students how to deal with clients who are struggling with their sexuality, affectional orientation, and gender expression, and the intersection with their spiritual and religious beliefs. one thing that another good friend of mine said that, to ask someone to leave their church because of homophobic messages is like asking them to leave their blood family because of those messages. Yeah. The Black church is a family, and we get that familiar aspect from them. What happened? What we tend to do is build our own ego strength.
Yeah.
To withstand that, and when the old church mom was trying to hook us up with her granddaughter and saying, you know what, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So having that wherewithal and that self advocacy is going to be is important. And so when we have classes, we have to help them to build that as well. So that's what I did. That's what a lot of queer Black men and queer brown men that are involved in church do.
It's amazing because the amount of support that it took you, and we're going to limit it to you, is incredible. Because not only with having that kind of support, with having family members, with having administrators, mentors, with having even friendships and relationships that of people that legitimately, and I really like how you said it, they affirmed you. They let you know you're allowed to be you. You do not have to change for anyone else. It not only gave you the opportunity to avoid and maybe circumvent some of the potential potholes that could have completely engulfed you, but it also led you to now, later today, you're meeting up with a bunch of mentees. It also led you to set an example, and it gave you the opportunity to become that same support for somebody else as someone else was that for you.
Right.
That's beautiful, man. That's incredibly beautiful.
Man. That's me in a nutshell, man. That's me in a nutshell.
All right. David, Dr. David, you're gonna have to give me one more opportunity for us to sit down and have this conversation at a later time.
Oh yes. And what will be good is after I can have this conversation, after my presidency is up, and talk about how that was and what's next for me, and getting this damn dossier out of my hands.
Dude, honestly, I can't thank you enough for being as honest and transparent as you have been. I think your story, not because I know you, but there's a lot of power in that, and I hope that you see it as the most important part. As long as you see the power. All right, David. Thank you for everything, man. And we will be in contact very soon. And I'm serious when I say, send me that link to that book or the citation, whatever it is you want to send me so I can include it across all the different platforms.
Of course.
David, you've been amazing, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother.
All right.
Bye.